Well, the Vision 2030 has come a long way since it was launched in the year 2008. And now, with about 10 years to go, the vision has faced significant challenge because of various challenges, from funding to COVID-19. But at the end of the day, it has to be delivered. Where are we in terms of implementation? What are the challenges and opportunities? Well, tonight on Inside Government, we face Vision 2030 with Director General Mwige. We'll be discussing the future of Vision 2030 and what needs to be done in order to accelerate the plans under Vision 2030. Thank you so very much indeed, Ken, for finding time to be with us. I mean, it is proper to say that, since the inception of Vision 2030, back in the year 2008, one would qualify to say that the year 2020 would pass to be one of the most hardest for the implementation of this document.
You're right. 2020, all of us were singing Happy New Year in December last year, hoping that 2020 would be better than 2019. Then 2020 happened, and it knocked the whole world sideways. Anybody who had plans, governments, from governments to individuals, we have all had to change our plans and adjust. So 2020 is, I think, one of the most difficult years the world has seen, never mind Kenya.
And it has been tough for the world. How tough has it been for Vision 2030?
Vision 2030, as you know, is the national blueprint. And I think the government needs to be commended because it has been faithful to the vision. The vision has developed in between 2006 and 2008, when it was launched, has been followed very, very, very faithfully through medium-term plans. The first one was 2008 to 2012. The second medium-term plan was 2013 to 2017. And then we are currently now in MTP3, which is running from 18 to 22. So everything the government has been doing, especially with the Devolution system, with the new constitution, is aligned with Vision 2030. So that the projects being funded by government at the national level and the projects being funded by counties at the county level, they are all aligned. And part of the work of this secretariat is to make sure that shillings and cents, taxpayer shillings and cents being spent, are being spent on vision projects or generally supporting the vision. So that has happened very well. And that alignment all the way from national government to county governments, I think is important and is what has kept the vision alive.
Even before COVID-19, struck, the vision, the implementation of Vision 2030, was facing some hiccups, from from realignment of priorities, at the county levels, by new officers in the name of county government, to funding challenges because of low budget allocations. How has this complicated the situation for the implementation of the vision?
Implementation, like in all places, even in the private sector, you have wonderful plans, but maybe you don't realize the money which you expected in terms of revenue, or you're unable to raise finance. Financing is always a problem. Our wish list is always longer than what we have, our resources. We want to build a 10-story building, but our money is only good enough for 2 stories. So this gap, 70% of Vision 2030 projects are supposed to be funded by the private sector, PPPs, which is why what government has done in the last 10 years is literally concentrating on its 30% contribution, which are big ticket items and also the software. Big ticket items are things like the Thika Superhighway, things like the port, standard gauge railway. Those are the big things people see. And those are the things most Kenyans will associate with Vision 2030. Konza, Technopolis, big things which can be seen. But there are a lot of small things which are happening, which are benefiting Kenyans, which we are enjoying already, and which are in the Vision 2030 plan. If you look at the road network, through the national government and the devolved system through the counties, I think there are very few parts of this country which have not seen a serious and marked improvement with the road network. If you just look at the major roads, let's look at northern Kenya, which is literally my favorite part of the country nowadays. If you look at the new road from Isiolo, Marsabit, Moyale, that's complete. You know, you no longer take 3-4 days to get to Moyale. It's 1 day. If you wake up early enough in Nairobi and drive peacefully without racing, you can easily be in Moyale by end of day.
When you look at reports emerging from major economic and financial institutions, and I'm talking about the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, McKinsey, they're saying that it will take about 4 years, before the world gets to where it was, before COVID struck the world. Can it be said of the same for Vision 2030, that we're likely also to take about 4 to 5 years before we get to the implementation level of pre-COVID era?
I think the one lesson COVID has taught us is that man proposes, but God disposes. You can make all the wonderful plans you want, but an act of God is an act of God. A pandemic is, no one can plan for a pandemic.
But that doesn't stop you from planning.
It doesn't stop you from planning. You must plan. Yeah. You must plan. So in terms of what the way forward in these circumstances, I think there's a lot of emphasis on how to recover. How to recover. Recovery is the main thing. It will take time for sure. And when you're recovering, the ERS and the post-COVID, and even our own strategy here in VDS, we know that recovery from a pandemic is going to take time. And we also know that it's not guaranteed that even in 4 years' time, you'll come back to pre-COVID. So we're in a new reality. So we have to look at everything we're doing and reimagine. We have to invest, reinterrogate. We have to reinterrogate the foundations on which we made assumptions. For example, you assume that you will continue growing at a certain rate. You assume that with the opening up of a new berth or a port or something, you expect some economic stimulus to happen from there. But right now, none of that is there. So we really have to reimagine and rethink what are the foundational pillars, and are they enough? Can they cope in this changed world? Everything has changed now. So we have to, the biggest struggle now, we're going through now, in government, in planning especially, and the National Treasury, is to try and figure out, okay, this has happened. How do you make 2 shillings give you the effect of 8 shillings? That means you have to think harder than you were thinking before. And that's the exercise which is going on, because we have reduced revenue, the expectations are the same, and you have to meet the gap. So that is an exercise currently going on, and we are hopeful that we'll come up with a good formula.
How difficult will this be? I mean, bearing in mind that you have projects, that are still ongoing and that require significant funding. And according to World Bank, they will tell you that there is a funding for incomplete projects to the tune of about 1 trillion shillings. Bearing in mind that backlog in terms of funding, a new project that are supposed to come, online, how would this delay the achievement of Vision 2030?
One of the biggest problems many governments face is incomplete projects, white elephants, or either white elephants or incomplete projects. And then remember, we are also in a political
project overruns.
Yes, and overruns. And then remember, we are also in a political environment. And every 5 years, you have a change of guard. Every 5 years, you have a change of guard. And with a change of guard, sometimes you have different priorities. A political process is, of course, competitive. And after you successfully remove me from my previous position as governor of X county, you come in, and all the projects which were my pet projects suddenly become pariahs. No one is interested in them. So to prevent that, we are under strict instructions right now. No new projects in government. No new projects. Complete what is there. And if you must start a new project, and it is very, very important, you have to get authorization from the very top. So there's alignment, like I'm saying, there's alignment. Government is aware of the problem. Instructions have been given, no new projects, finish, complete ongoing projects. And that's no other way you can deal with that problem. So it's been dealt with, it's been taken care of.
And the private sector that you are also talking about, I mean, is also one of the hardest hit, from job layoffs, to delayed funding because of COVID. So apart from the two sources of revenue, internal fundings from government and private sector, are there other avenues that you plan to explore in a bid to raise funding?
Yes, I mean, we live in an interconnected world, so we have development partners who work with us. In the past, it used to be that he who pays the piper calls the tune. But luckily, we have moved away from ad hoc implementation of development assistance. It is structured. There's development assistance through the government as well, budget support for various programs, and then there is, of course, the usual NGO, non-government sector, etc. So, in terms of sources of funding, for the government of Kenya, the aim is self-sustenance. It is not to rely on development partners. And we do this because Kenya is a rich country. We have a population which is well educated. We are entrepreneurial in spirit. One of the lessons we have learned in 2020 is that, we're expecting food riots. We're expecting, maandamano, haki yetu. But what did Kenyans do? Kenyans got together, realized lazima hapa tusaidiane, and Kenyans have helped each other to survive this year. So that's a spirit those are the software things we need to tap into. Kenyans are resilient, Kenyans are hardworking, Kenyans support each other. And we'll find a way to make sure that the output from Kenyans themselves comes up. One of the key areas of focus is the youth, what we call the youth. O'Brien, 70% of the population is, I think 35 and below is 65%. Between 65 to 70% of all Kenyans who are alive today are 35 years and below. Mm-hmm. That is the most important demographic government has to think about. That is the most important demographic the Vision 2030 has to think about. For the simple reason that if you look at the demographic itself, if you look at the ones who are, I think under 15 are almost 50%, under 15 years of age. In about 5, 6, 7, 8 years' time, all these people are going to enter the job market. What are they going to find? So we are thinking about what they are going to find. We're thinking about the ones who are 20 years old now, coming out of high school, coming out of secondary school, coming out of colleges, etc. They're going to the job market to do what? So it's a very serious concern, and government is on top of it because we are realizing that if we do not give outlets, if we do not give economic opportunities, and these are our children now. These are the people you left in your house this morning. These are the people who you dropped off at school. These are the people who walk into the gate in the evening when they've come from wherever they've come from. In another very short time, they're going to be economic people. Now, you cannot be an economic person with nothing to do and nowhere to go. So we are racking our brains in government trying to think, what are these people going to do? What are these young men and women going to do when they come out and they look up and they say, okay, government of Kenya, what do you have for me?
What solutions are you getting for that?
For the youth, we have to first of all ramp up the existing avenues. Things like agriculture. We are largely 70%, 80% an agricultural backed economy. But we are doing mostly primary production and very little value addition. So in conjunction with stakeholders, KEPSA, KMA, Kenya Association of Manufacturers, KAM, etc., we're trying to see how we can develop programs and accelerate them very quickly so that we encourage, for example, value addition, we encourage cottage industries, we encourage small businesses. And one of the reasons which has been making this difficult is that a lot of Kenyans feel that when you try to start a small business, government comes and lands on you like a ton of bricks. Wapi license ya county, wapi license ya NEMA, wapi license ya KEBS, wapi license ya sijui nani, wapi license ya ule mwingine. So a lot of Kenyans are feeling that government is not helping them. So we are aware of this problem and we're trying to see how we can do a one-stop shop so that you can go there and get all the information you need to comply, because Kenyans are not trying to cut corners.
It is true that there has been tremendous investment, in programs and projects, all aimed, at making Kenya, a better place, socially, economically, even politically. But there has been this disconnect, between what the government is doing and the public perception and how the public, reacts to what government is doing. As Vision 2030, how do you plan, to cascade what you're doing to the last person, at the county, at the ward level, at whatever other level?
Devolution has been good. Devolution is good because previously sitting here in Upper Hill in Maji House or whatever it is, it's very difficult to really know what is the real need of somebody in Lokichar or somebody in Kashoriri or somebody in Kwale. Very, very hard. So devolution is good because development is at the grassroots and money is being spent there well. We have very good examples of successfully working devolution with good public participation, good delivery, and little to no corruption. So it is possible, and we know where this is happening. It can be done. In terms of what we need to do to make sure that there's trickle down of all these effects, it is to strengthen the devolution. And devolution is a Vision 2030 project. The new constitution is an MTP1, MTP, Medium Term Plan 1, 2008-2012, the new constitution. It came to pass. MTP2, between 2013 and 2017, was the first time in Kenya we've had a devolved system. We had governors. Now we all know what governors can do. Now we all know what the devolved system can do. And fortunately for Kenya, we have 2, 3, 4, 5 success stories to give of counties which are well run, where the citizen participation, where there's little or no corruption, where delivery is happening, and where actually you can see, you can imagine the future. You can see the future. So we have some success stories, and that's good. So the trick is to build on these success stories and then to cut down on the jokers and the clowns because, you know, it's serious business out here. So even for the public, I think when Kenyans go to the polls in 2 years, there'll be very good examples of the sort of people you should elect and the sort of people you should not waste your vote on. But that's a political process, and we work with whoever comes. Because at the end of the day, Kenyans are sovereign. Yes.
You know, we have seen a situation whereby every new administration, you know, coming to power, they change the development program, they implement their own. And of course, this has a, you know, some negative impact on the country's overall development plan, that is Vision 2030. So how do you ensure that there is consistency, there is harmony, you know, in all these programs?
It has been the story in Kenya for sure that between 2 years, a year and a half to a year to the election, there's a lull. There is a let's wait and see. And wait and see affects the whole country, including the private sector. Because private sector is about investments, about long term, it's about strategic decisions. But when there's uncertainty about either a political process or the outcome of a political process, then that is not good for business. And this is why I think if we stop for a minute and we are honest with each other, we will say we have had a very peaceful last 3 years. Is that true? A very peaceful last 3 years after the handshake. That's the sort of environment we need for development. Because when there are political fights going on at high volume and high decibels every day, incessantly, for 365 days, it's not good for anyone. Not good for the politicians, not good for the country. So we are hoping that, and the aims of the BBI were to divorce the political processes from the running of government projects and programs, so that the politics happens and it is as robust as it wants to be. But the public service, delivery of services to Wananchi continues. That is the experiment we are currently doing with BBI. And my opinion is that BBI should be supported because its primary objective was to divorce politics from development. So that politics is not the be-all and end-all of this country. It is not. There's more to life than politics. So if we successfully do that, the details are what now can be quarreled about. People arguing about this, about that. Is it overreach? Is it too much? Is it too little? But if you just remember what is the purpose, what is the original aim of BBI, it was to bring the political temperatures down. It was to de-emphasize the role of politics in the national scheme of things, and to make sure, particularly, that development continues. And then when it's political time for politics, you do the politics in its time. When the politics ends, it ends there, and we all go back to work. So that's what we're hoping to come out of it. And we're hoping that the process will end, and it will end well, because we don't need perfection. There's no perfection in this world. What we need is good. What we need is good, not perfect.
What do we expect to see on the 1st of January 2030?
On the 1st of January 2030, touch wood, God willing, no COVID, no strange new things to knock us out of kilter, Kenya will be much improved. It's 2020 now. What difference can you see between 2010 and 2020? What can you do today which you could not do in 2010? 2010 you couldn't ride on SGR. 2010, we had our old airport. 2010, we had our Mombasa port being like this. 2010, there was no Lamu port. 2010, there was no road opening up northern. There are no roads opening up northern Kenya. 2010, all of us were just surviving here 100 kilometers north and south of the colonial railway line between Mombasa and Kisumu, which is where Kenyans still live. In 2010, by 2010, I expect northern Kenya to have been opened up, and people should stop thinking of 50 by 100 plots in Ruaka and Ruai and Mbakasi and I don't know where, and wherever else we are running around looking for small plots. We want the youth of this country to pick their laptops or whatever it is if you have a laptop. Even if you don't have a laptop, you don't need a laptop. Borrow 1,000 shillings from your brother here, your older brother or your dad or your mom. Enter a bus. Go to Wajir. Look around. I come from Nyandarua. What don't these people here have in Wajir? Or I come from Kisumu. You go to Isiolo. Where do these people get their fish? Or you come from Kwale and the coastal counties, and you come to anywhere outside the coastal areas. You can't get madafu, a very refreshing, health-giving drink. So the opportunities are many. But what we need to do is to get our youth seeing the opportunities and moving away from their villages and their small towns and their counties. We want Kenyans to move. Let the youth move. Let people wake up today and say, oh, for the first time I can go to Lodwar. Let me go to Lodwar and see what is in Lodwar. Let me go to Moyale. Let me go to Mandera. Never been there. Let me go to Lamu. Never been there. Let me go to Malindi. Let me go to all these places. Go there and you will find whatever your interest is, there is an opportunity there. But the first thing you must do is come out of your house. Come out of your mother's house, come out of your father's house. That's the first thing you must do. Come out there, go out and see. Wherever you come from, if you come from Kisii, if you come from an agriculturally rich area, okay, there are places in this country which are waiting for you to take bananas. There are places in this country which are waiting for you to bring madafu. If you come from a sugarcane growing area, there are places which are waiting for you to popularize sugarcane drink. That machine is very small. It's very cheap to buy, very cheap to operate. You have the market, you know where the sugarcane comes from. Take it somewhere else. So these are the sort of things we want to encourage, because we're not going to get manna from heaven. There will be no big voice in the sky and thunder and lightning bringing us gifts. We have to do this thing ourselves.
It is us who have to do it.
We have to do it ourselves.
Okay.
So the trick here is to reimagine economic activity, reimagine how we can do things, reimagine how you can change. We have to, as we finish, I must go back to something I find very useful, which guides me in my own thinking. We grew up in primary school being told so many vijana, mwisho wa kusoma utapata kazi mzuri sana. That's what we grew up with. Anybody who went to primary school in the 60s, 70s, 80s, all the way to the 90s. That was the religion we had. Work hard, pass your exams, go to a good school, go to college, then you get a job where you can wear a tie behind a desk and you push files around. That is so gone. That is so in the past. That is so in the forget about it. What you need to do now is to realize that this is not where you want to go. This is not where you want to go. Where you want to go is where you're doing something new, something innovative, where you're meeting a need and where you're providing a service. And for the youth of today, there's really no excuse, because we grew up at a time when the internet, actually we met the internet almost near 2000, when we had dial-ups for most of us. Internet appeared in the late 90s, and it was slow and it was cumbersome, and Google wasn't what it is. Today, you have the world at your fingertips, literally. You have information about prices, you have information about everything. You can sit at a desk and actually visit Mandera County through Google Maps. You can visit the whole county. All you need is internet and Wi-Fi. You can visit the whole county. So the youth of today really don't have much excuse. You have everything going for you.
You know, as we wind up, should we rename Vision 2030 to Vision 2050 or 2040?
Well, there's African Union Agenda 2063. Vision 2030 is not a destination. I keep saying it is not on 31st of December 2030. We will not suddenly declare, okay, everybody open your eyes, we are now inside the country called Vision 2030. Vision 2030 is a dream. It is actually a good vision is unattainable. If a vision is attainable, it's not a good vision. A vision should be higher than your capacity, should be higher than your human capacity, should be higher than the money you have in your pocket as a country. A vision is something which is in the air. It should not be something which you can jump and reach. So a vision is our aspiration. We want to be a newly industrializing middle-class country living in a safe and secure environment by 2030. What that means is that we have to, that's the answer. Then you work backwards from the answer. What do I need to do now? And what it does is that you find that you cut out wastage, you cut out wasting of time, you cut out wastage, you don't waste resources, we don't waste time, we don't waste effort. So efforts are guided. Under the performance contracting system in government, we're trying to make sure that everything that gets done gets measured. And there is accountability. There's accountability. So for most people who are not aware how government works, I think my message is be encouraged. There's a lot of good work happening in government, a lot of good work. Some you see, some you feel, some you don't. You will see it when you go to a Huduma center. You will see it when you're driving on a road, which was terrible, is now marramed or it's tarmacked. You will see it when you go to hospital. You will see it when your grandmother gets 2,000 shillings. Money, whether you're supporting her or not, she can buy whatever she needs. If she's truly desperate, you can be able to survive and buy food. So there are very many ways Kenyans are already enjoying Vision 2030. What needs to happen is better communication of what the vision is and your role in it as a Kenyan. What do you do? And Kenyans need to own Vision 2030 because we are all raising boys and girls, young men and young women in our homes. We are all young men and women who are children of somebody else. So those of us who are in the age group of parents right now, we have to think very seriously. This Vision 2030 is not something which government should do. It's something you should be interested in. Because in your house, your son and your daughter needs to do something when they reach 18 or 19 or 20. It's a message that belongs to everyone. It's a concern that everybody should have.
Well, Ken Mwige is the Director General of Vision 2030. A Secretariat joining us on Inside Government. His message is very simple. The dream is still alive. The vision is still achievable. We just need to do our part as Kenyans. O'Brien Kimani is my name. Thank you for your time. This has been Inside Government.